Hi, I'm Dan. Welcome to Gravel Pit Road. I got this brake cylinder hone, and what I'm going to do is use it inside of here. Maybe not. Might not be. It might not spring out enough. Maybe it will, because you'll see this thing is rough. Somebody's been in here and they have chewed this up. And my concern is that when I put the new seal in, all those grooves are just going to create another leak. It's also really rough along this edge. My plan is to take JB Weld and fill in all these grooves. And as I said earlier, there shouldn't be a lot of pressure coming out through here because there's an inner seal. Hopefully that'll fix it. With JB Weld, it's just filled in the grooves. It's not great, but at least there's some filler in there. Maybe it'll help. Well, I feel better about it. Let me wipe it out. All right, if you look in here, you'll see the dark areas. That's where JB Weld has actually filled in some really bad spots. Actually, that's a shiny spot right there. That's metal. The light spot is JB Weld. And right there, bring it around here. There's a lot of really bad spots in here. This is all JB Weld down here. Goes all the way up into here. These are grooves that were cut. They're full of JB Weld. So something fairly catastrophic has happened, I think, to the shaft itself. The shaft that was in it's missing a couple teeth. They're not missing, but there's chunks taken out. So something happened, and I don't know how it got in here and chewed this up, but that's been chewed on while that pump was rotating. I think that's where the bulk of the leak was coming from, around the outside of the seal, not the inside of the seal. There's that weep hole. You got to be careful not to cover that up with the seal. You only bring the seal down to this ring, to the top of it, to this snap ring ridge. Here's how the bag of new seals came to me, O-rings. They just came in this bag, just random seals stuffed in this bag. There's your part number, if you can see that. That is from the John Deere dealer, and they own this company, Agricultural and Industrial A&I products, made in Turkey. That's great. So what I did was I took them all out and I sorted them using my calipers by size and width, and then I logged it. Like this one has a bunch of miscellaneous small ones. Yeah. And I wrote them down here. These were a little more obvious. I already know where they go, but just to make sure, I'm going to double check with the ones that are on the pump that I'm taking apart. So those are all the same size, and then I have a bunch of miscellaneous that are obvious in here. Just thought I'd show you that. And just so you know, I have rented this from, I rented it from O'Reilly Auto Parts, EverTough bearing race and seal driver set. Comes with this assortment and this handle, and we'll be using this 81 millimeter. Okay, so I'm going to put this new this new bearing race bearing cup in, and what I did is I put this in the freezer for about an hour and 15 minutes just to give it a shrink. I put some lubricant, some chain and garage cable lubricant. It's the only thing I had laying around in here to shrink this, to slick everything up. So what I figured out is there's basically like two steel rings. I guess they're rings. One here, it's about 1 inch deep, and there's one at the bottom that seats this race. So I got to drive this all the way to the bottom. I got this from a auto parts store on rental, whole kit. They charge you and then they refund your money in full when you return it after 2 days or up to 2 days. This is an 81 millimeter. I really need about an 82 or 83 millimeter, but I shrunk it a little bit in the freezer, so it seems to fit better. I'm gonna see if I can get this in without messing anything up. It's a little too small. See how easy it moves. I want to booger it up. This piece is aluminum that I'm hitting. It's going really easy too. All right, through the first one. I go down the second one. I didn't damage anything either. That's good. Better than hitting it with a punch. It's a seal and race driver is what it is. A bearing seal and race driver. Oh yeah, that's going. Nice thing about this tool is it feels like it's going straight. It's not cockeyed. Come on now. Thing is, I don't want to put it down in there too deep because I measured the top of the race to the top of this casting, because it doesn't go all the way to the bottom. And of course I can't make it exact because I don't have exact tools, but it needs to be 7.1. Goes down a little bit further. Well, I'm not sure. It's the story of my life on this project. I'm not sure. 7 point, what did I measure to? 7.1. 1, 2, 3. 7.1. 1, 3. Well, I don't think I'm gonna take it down any further. I'm gonna call it quits there. These are the old bearings that I took out of the pump. And this is the new race that I bought from an online dealer, reputable dealer. That is a 50 centimeter 3, whatever that means. And there's your numbers. Morel.com. I didn't buy it from them though. I bought it from, well, I'll give the name. It's Allstate Ag. They sent me the bearings and the race separately from 2 different dealers, and it doubled my shipping cost. Total price was about $100 with shipping. And the John Deere dealer, who I love, they took good care of me, Murphy in Cincinnati, they wanted $300. So their bearings are better, I guess. I don't know. Here's your bearing numbers. Wow, can't get it in. It's 38, 72 maybe. 72, 73, 78. My eyes aren't that good. Don't know if they're original. It says Japan. Probably not. I bet the originals were made in USA. Or maybe they were made in Japan. 1974. Could have been. Tapered bearing. Hope that helps. There's the other one. I think that's a 2. 3872. Don't know. Whatever fits that race. 50 point centimeter. 50 centimeter. Alright, so I just dropped number 5 check valve in the hole. It's the one that fell out when I took it apart. It fell out by itself. And being that I had to tap them out, I'm assuming they seat themselves slightly, but I'm going to gently tap it. My hand's in the way using this punch, because my guess is it's not supposed to just fall out. The plug probably is deep enough to push it in. The little check valve spring works. I'm working on the side you can't even see. So I dropped it in one of these little pistons. Check valves, spring pushes. And I'll do that all the way around and then put the corresponding plug back in the hole. Number 4. I already cleaned these off with I'll put some oil on it. Let me spin this around here so you can see what's going on. A little oil, a little bit of transmission oil. Just oh, look at that. What is that? Thought I cleaned it off. And this is stamp number 4. Hole's clear. Drop that down in there. They slide all the way to the bottom. I'm thinking the plug probably just presses it down in there as you tighten it. But oh, see, that's cockeyed. It's rocking. That's rocking all the way down in there. Well, spring works. A little more tappy. Yeah, I think the plug pushes it down in there. All right, I will keep going till I am ready to put the plugs in. All right, here's the learning curve. So this is the valve part of this check valve. It's in the bottom because you saw the pistons go upside down. The valves point towards the inside of the pump. The spring is on the outside of the pump. There's actually that's seated all the way down. I took a socket and used it as a driver to push the entire piston down until it's seated at the bottom. I don't know if you can see this, but yep, you can see it moving. So if you see that moving in there, that piston is seated to the bottom of that cylinder, and that's where it needs to be. Because I noticed that when I drove, this is the third one that I put in. So I put this one in, it went almost straight to the bottom already. That's the one that actually fell out on its own. I noticed this one was higher and this one was way up high. And then I counted threads. You can actually see daylight down in the bottom when I shine a flashlight through. That's what was my clue that I wasn't putting these down far enough. So I took this 15 millimeter socket, set it down in there, and gave it a couple pretty good coaching taps, and they dropped down in there. The other thing that was a clue was that the shiny spot on the bottom of that piston, because I'm so smart, I figured out that that is actually sliding into that sleeve at the bottom. And there you have it. good. These will have to be torqued to a specification. I'll have to look up again. It's either 100 foot-pounds or 84. I can't remember. I'll have to look it up. Okay, so there are 3 seals on this pump. There's this Teflon seal. There's this rubber square, has a groove in it. Kind of, it reminds me of a wiper seal. It's probably what it is. And then there's the steel seal. It has rubber on this side, rubber internally, rubber on the outside bottom. This is the bottom. That's where the spring lies inside of that, and the spring goes down inside. This open groove goes up. I want to talk about this for a second. There's a guy on the internet, on YouTube, named Colossus, and he just gives tips about this pump. He already has it torn down. Doesn't show breaking anything down, but he gave one very important tip that I picked up on, and that is there's 2 different kinds of shafts you'll see on these pumps. There's 3 good videos that I've seen posted on this pump, taking it apart, putting it together, but they aren't complete videos, not like what I'm trying to do here. And nobody talks about this seal except Colossus. And what he is talking about in his book, I downloaded an online book for $30 off a John Deere website, and it's pretty good, but it doesn't give detail about things like this. There was no way I would know what to do with this. So this is like a Teflon seal, rubber, and I'll use the old shaft as an example. So it would go like this on the old shaft, like this, and the Teflon goes towards the end, and the rubber goes in the middle or on the back, and then this seal goes like this when you put it all together. You'll see on the other videos besides Colossus that they have a Teflon. There's a groove in the shaft by itself. There's an actual groove and a different type of seal. They don't show this, but they show a Teflon seal that goes into that groove. They take a worm gear clamp, which is what John Deere apparently recommends, and they squeeze it tight until it shrinks around the shaft, and then you install that through this seal. I don't have that, but I'm just letting you know in case you have that one. I have this one. So I'm probably going to put a little petroleum jelly on the outside just so it sticks in there when I push through the shaft and don't tear anything up. This is what I'm battling. As you can see, if you can see that, the O-ring is large enough that it's a challenge to get it worked down in there. But I think I'm getting it. Some light in here for you. I'm sure it has to be absolutely perfect. Hey, that went. I probably made a mistake because somehow I got to get this guy in. I don't know how to do that. I might go back to the drawing board and pop that back out. All right, well, that was surprisingly easy. I thought that was going to be a challenge, but it wasn't. If you can see the white ring in the front, the black in the back, just how it's supposed to be. What I did was I took my pick. I took this pick. There was plenty of room to work in there. I popped the black O-ring out, and half of it. I just popped half of it out and pushed it down, and the white Teflon was flexible enough. I just worked it down. It popped right in. And then I took this hook and reached down, pulled it back up, and just worked it back in with my finger. And if I didn't show you, petroleum jelly is what you're to use on these O-rings if you need to. That's what's in the book. And there you have it. Now I'm going to put this one in. .325. They don't have it in millimeters. I have to convert it. And you just take this, put that in there. Now you have a handle, and I got it this far just by pushing it with my fingers. That light is blinding me. So I'm just going to tap this very easily. And the book says not to put any lube on this, just drive it in dry. Which it has rubber on it. It makes me nervous it's going to tear something, but I do have it pretty smooth in there. Man, that's stiffer than what I thought. That JB Weld probably closed that hole up. It's going. It's going. Yeah. The right size. I got the right size. It's almost there. You just want to put it at the snap ring, right where the snap ring is. If you go any further, you'll cover up that hole, that like overflow hole. I do not want to do that. That'll stop your oil from escaping when it gets past the other seals in the back, and then it'll overpressurize and blow this seal out. So you have like two safeties on your shaft to keep the oil from getting out. And I need to take it down just a little bit further. One moment, please. It feels like I'm hitting on the seal. On the adapters hitting the sides, maybe. I'm gonna grab a smaller adapter here, driver. All right, onto the snap ring. Hopefully I got that down in there farther. And I did not change the driver. I kept the same. This other one was too small, was hitting on the rubber. And I think the other one got it down far enough. And just to remind you, that rubber seal that I showed you, that's what's left of it. If there was a Teflon seal in there, it is not there. It's gone. And that's the rubber seal. No good. Hopefully it doesn't happen again. This is the snap ring, and I gotta hopefully I got this down in there far enough. Now see, it has a flex in it. It probably should not be like that, and I'm not going to get another one. And I don't know if I can bend it. Oh, does it have a little tension in it? That's probably why it popped out. It popped out too easy on me. If you can see me messing with this thing. It's still flexed. So what do? You put it back in, hope it stays. At least my groove's clean. Went in there deep. I think it was dirty before. Look at that. Popped right down in there. Make sure it's all the way in. And let's coach it a little bit. Screwdriver's a hammer, you know. Man. I need a punch. Okay, now I'm working on the destroker side of the pump. And you have this thing right here. Takes a 19mm O-ring. I'll pop on there. The way this works is inside the pump, inside of this side of the pump. Get that out of the way. Ooh, that's heavy. Everything on this pump's heavy. Side of this pump. On this end, you got large holes. You have small holes. So on this side of it, which I believe goes in here. I gotta study up on this again before I put this all together. But this goes through here. This needle, which is apparently one of the most important parts of the entire pump. This is the destroker assembly that I'm working on. This pressurizes and depressurizes the pump. It's a winter start feature, as I mentioned before. But this would slide in here, I believe, and this has to slide. If this does not slide, it gets stuck, then you have a pump problem. And this slides just fine, but it's also tight, which is good. Comes out this end here. Hopefully you can see that. And sticks out this side of the hole. And I believe that's the destroker side. Here's my needle valve right here. This would sit like this right there. And as you screw this valve in, it pushes the destroker valve, which I have some lint on it, pushes that up. And then when you let it down, there's an O-ring here and an O-ring here. It closes it. Closes that off, and also allows the destroker valve to fall back down, and there's a seat. This is tapered. There's a seat right there, and that sits. And that applies pressure back into your pump. And there's a hole right here on both sides that I presume creates a bypass. And then of course on the other side of the assembly, there's another apparatus that screws in on this top and puts pressure on this side, which I'll get to later. I'm going to put this destroker assembly back in. Make sure I put everything in the right direction. A little oil on this O-ring. I don't know if I should use, I think I'll just use oil. I could use Vaseline, I guess, but what do I do that for? Alright, that was messy. Okay, now to make sure I put this in correctly. So I've got the large hole on this side, the small destroker hole on the bottom. This needle here goes in here. So I'm going to drop this down into here. Make sure I got it on the right side. Yes, I do. Oil off my fingers. 1/2-inch wooden dowel, so I don't damage anything. I wonder if I can push that down before I hit it. So where you get nervous about stuff like this because you don't want to roll that O-ring. Give it a couple love taps. Oh, well, it moved. Moved again. And it went down again. Did it go too far? I don't know. I don't know if it did or not. I don't know if it's a bottom. If there is a bottom. I don't know. Let me check it out. This is part of the assembly that goes opposite of the destroker needle that I was showing you. Can you see that? Yes, you can. So this is what goes on the other side. You have this piston. It has a like what looks like a spray nozzle, and that's what goes down on top of this right here. So this is pushing on that right there. So when you screw that valve up to de-stroke it, you're pushing up against the cylinder, and then when you unscrew it, this falls back down. And it's blowing through here, I suppose. I'd have to look at the flow, but I'm going to say yes. Now, what creates pressure is this big spring that goes in there, and this device here goes on top of this, and this threads into the body, putting pressure down on the destroker assembly, this guy on the opposite side. And I showed this to the John Deere mechanic, and his comment was, that shouldn't be down like that. So in here is I haven't quite figured out, I think it looks like it might be an Allen wrench set screw type situation with this pin sticking out this side. And reading the book, this is actually supposed to be up almost a 1/4 of an inch. This is your adjustment, your pressure. This is your pump pressure adjustment. And it is completely out of whack. I'm guessing because it was leaking so bad, somebody cranked it down to give it more pressure to compensate for the leak. So it's really dirty. I got to take this nut off, pull this apart, and there are spacers that I think are supposed to be in here. This washer was on this side of it. I'm not sure that that's correct. I'll know here when I tear it apart. Make sure you can see that. Just a copper washer. Because in the book it says that you can stack these washers to get the proper adjustment. So I'm going to take this apart. I'll be back in a second. Interesting wrench that I got a long time ago. I need to clean it up. It's rusty. But it's like it pinches. So if you don't know what size it is, which I wasn't going to mess around with this, I could have used an adjustable. But this worked. Drop that down in there like that. Slide this over. It pinches it. 3/4 inch wrench. Oh boy, oh boy. Oh boy, oh boy. Easier said than done. Good Lord. I need to put it in a vise. God darn. There we go. You get some leverage. See what we got. I don't know. I don't know what this is. I've not had this apart. The picture in the book isn't very good. Looks okay. That's pretty grimy. Jeez. Very grimy. Trying to see if there's an adjustment. Yeah, it looks like a hex Allen wrench. That's what it looks like. But now what's it do? Does it unscrew? Does it tap in and out? Has to be threaded in. Let me get my Allen set. Moment of truth, my crusty Allen set. And yes, it is threaded. There's a washer that they're talking about to space it. And it threads right out. That's dirty. Let's see here. All right, so there's an O-ring sitting right there. And this is a washer. It slides. It's not a copper washer though, it's a steel washer. Looks like a steel washer. All right, I'm gonna clean this up and I'm gonna look at the book one more time and read how this is actually supposed to be adjusted. I think it is supposed to be sticking out of this nut. I don't remember. I gotta look it up. Be back to you in a minute. All right, I'm gonna finish this up. So I was worried about this having to have some pre-setting on it, and the adjustment screw for the pump. What I realized is that you need to adjust the pressure after you get the pump, everything installed, and you have the tractor running. So it has an O-ring right under here. I'm just going to take it down there and set it on there, snug. I'll go a little more than finger tight because I don't want to crush that O-ring. So what I will do is, you know what? That would be all the way in, I guess. Yeah, that's all the way in. So does your adjustment come from these shims here? Maybe. I don't know. I watched a video of a guy adjusting one of these pumps, and he used this screw, but this screw was all the way down in there. And now I'm looking at it, and oh, never mind. So it goes like this. Put that on there. Now it's all the way down inside there. So maybe your adjustment comes by adding these shims. That's a good question. I don't know. I just don't know. Did I replace that O-ring already? It looks new. I don't know. Okay, everything has new O-rings on it. Start by putting this needle valve back in. The stroker pressure relief valve, I guess you'd call it. I'm just going to make it hand tight. I think everything has to be torqued, which I have to reference the book for all of that. That goes there. I got to drop this little guy down in here without causing any damage. You're not going to be able to see it. I can't show it to you, but I'm going to, oh, this is magnetic. Let's see if I can get that over there. Yep, perfect. Take this down. It has a little like ridge on it, a little seal, which is why it doesn't just fall in. It needs a little bit of pressure. There's actually a peephole. Here I can look to make sure it's seated. There's a peephole right here. I'm sure it's for oil, but it's nice to look at. So that's down and that's sealed. Take this guy, this piston apparatus, slide that down in here. Nice heavy spring. This guy with the copper washer in it, which is a spacer, I guess, if you need them, because I thought this had an adjusting screw on it, but it has an O-ring on it. If you take an Allen wrench and loosen that, then it'll leak. So you just add washers, I guess. This has a pin, slides in the spring. And then, boy, getting that down in there, that's going to be a job. I'll have to figure that one out. All right, I should have videoed what I had to do to get this on with all that spring tension pushing up on it. I had to set it on the floor. I put a glove on, basically bent over and put all my weight down on it, and then walked around in a circle until the threads caught, and I just kept walking around in a circle until I pulled it down in there, enough that it made me dizzy. But there's probably some spring compression tool that they use or used in the factory to. All right, so I'm just going to hand tighten that. Had to take this out, obviously. But here's something I noticed. This whole thing is a learning experience. If you can see right here, you can see that piston, or that, yeah, basically that sleeve that piston has that nozzle on the end. It's halfway up in that hole right there. Let's see if I can put some light on it. So, see that? And then here's the adjustment screw, which is open right now. I'm going to close it. And I'm going to thread that down in there. What I want to see is if it touches and moves. If it does, then I did it right. If it doesn't, I did it wrong. Hand tight. And I think it's moving. It's very difficult though. It's tight. Another thing I just learned. So this is an adjustment screw, because what happens is you take this off. It shouldn't fly out. Okay. And yeah, that's threaded in. So this little washer right here, that little washer right here has an O-ring under it. And right now it's bottomed out. I remember the mechanic at John Deere making a comment about it being bottomed out. And that's probably why I had a hard time just putting that screw in. So I'm going to back this out. There's a lot of threads on that. Make sure I didn't booger up that O-ring. I'm going to back this way out and take the pressure off that spring as much as I can. I think it said a 1/4 inch. I read it somewhere and I cannot find out where I read it. But then when I tighten this nut down, it sits on this washer and it pushes that O-ring down. I'm going to put a little oil on that just as some lube. Yep. I don't want to tear it up. So let's see where I'm at. Obviously I can't go too far or I won't have any threads to tighten the nut down on. Oh yeah, here we go. Now it all makes sense to me. That's how you adjust the pump. And now the O-ring is compressed from that washer into this big nut here. There's a little taper in there, and the pressure is backed off of this pump. This set screw here was buried all the way down inside there, probably because they wanted to increase the pressure because the pump was leaking. And I'm guessing the more they increased the pressure, the more they blew out whatever was left of the seal. So if I back that out, that should take the pressure off that spring, off that pump, and off that de-stroker valve. So that makes me happy. Let me move everything down here so you can see. Okay, so on the other side of the de-stroker valve is this hole. Here's where the needle goes. I took it out because I had to knock this out. So this bushing, sleeve, whatever it is, with an O-ring on it, is on this side. And this being the top of the pump, as you see the serial number, casting number. There's the needle valve. The stroker valve goes here. This came out like this. O-ring is on the bottom, and I took my dowel and I knocked it down from the top, which I did not show you because I wasn't sure it was going to come out. But it's the same basically type of apparatus on this side as on this side. And in this goes this piece that slides in and out. And I gotta look and see. I can't remember if it goes this way or this way. I think the long end goes in the bottom. And that also has to slide up and down. So I will clean this up and work on reinstalling that. Okay, the part is oiled up. I dropped it down in there. And now I'm going to bottom it out. O-rings changed, oiled it real good, and I am not being aggressive at all, because I don't want to do anything dumb. I think I'm there. Is there any way to know that I'm there? Should have measured it. No, I think I can go down a little further. Yep, definitely. There we go. That did it. That did it. That did it. Yep. And I did figure out that this can only go one way, because the hole on one side is smaller than the hole on the other side, and it will not go in. So this piece here that's squared off, this piece is tapered. The tapered part is a smaller diameter than this piece, so it has to go in from which side? It's a good question. It goes in from this side, tapered down. Am I right? I am right. That's unusual. All right, onto the screen. Okay, so here's the screen set up, and here's the old screen, and this is what this goes into. When I took this apart, there's a bunch of washers on here. I don't know why, but I'm going to leave it the way it is. I've cleaned everything. I need to put a new O-ring. This is what I've been doing just to make sure that my eyeballs aren't playing a trick on me. So I use my cheap little calipers, and I give it a little measure. And it's about 30 millimeters, same thickness. And then I have this one here, which also is 23 and a half. Same. Okay, so I'm gonna pop this one on. I already took it off. Roll that down. Pop this guy off. Get that out of the way. Pop this guy on. Maybe. And then this goes on here. My new screen is here. Ordered this off of Amazon. I was really surprised they had one. They were still available like on Amazon, but there must be a million of these pumps out there. These are the packings that came with the, I don't know what brand it is, reliableaftermarketparts.com. That's where this came from on Amazon. But since the John Deere kit came with new packings, I'm going to use the John Deere packings. The screen looks identical. I mean, inside and out. Actually, you know what? This one has a lot more holes in it than this one does. A lot more holes. Wonder if that'll make a difference. Let's hope not. These holes could be larger. I don't know. And I can see light through this screen. I can see the holes, and I can't see light through this screen, but this screen could be filthy. John Deere dealer looked at this and he said, that is one dirty screen, you need to replace that. And I looked at it and said, I can just clean that out, that'll be fine. He goes, oh, don't do it. He said, that's a dirty screen. That's so small, those holes are so tiny, I can't see light through it. I see it now. Replace it. So I'm thinking I'll probably replace this spring after I run the tractor for 20, 30, 40 hours. I'll probably go ahead and pull it out and replace it again because the transmission's dirty. I got to change the fluid in it and clean the screen out that's in it. Enough talking. This goes here. And this fell out. If you remember in the first beginning of this video, this little thing fell out and the mechanic, Deere mechanic, confirmed that it goes like that. That's how that goes on. Now, I'm going to put some oil on some stuff. Let's see if I can. The chances of me getting this to all fall in together would be amazing. Let's see. I'm going to do it this way. I'm just going to be sloppy. Better safe than sorry. All right. Bear with me here. Best way for me to do this, I think, is oh shoot, it goes this way. It goes next to the valve, the adjustment screw. So I'm going to take this, turn it upside down, and slide it in like this. Am I wrong? Does that not go in like that? You know what? I think, 1 minute. Let me check this real quick. Okay, I'm glad I checked that because I was wrong. So the side with the screw, where did I put that? There it is right here. So this goes here, just for reference. This goes here. Just going to put it in partly. So that looks like that. There's the adjustment screw, the screen, and the nozzle. Cannot let that fall out. That slides in there like that, cupped side pointing out, and I'm going to do it like this. Make sure that looks proper in there. No, it does not. One moment. It did look right. It looked fine. I just couldn't see it with no light. Nozzle's on there. Oh, that's a lot better. Nothing's binding. Hand threaded. Got a little spring tension, not a lot. And that'll be good for now. That's everything, I believe. I've said it 100 times, has to be torqued. So I'll turn this down. And there you have it. It is assembled. I'm going to take this bolt out. I want to see what that is. See if there's an O-ring behind it. I've gone this far. I might as well replace everything. I've got plenty of O-rings left to go somewhere. Okay. I got this loose. And there is an O-ring on it. I don't know what it is. Why it's there. Must go somewhere. But I'm going to put a new O-ring on it. And I'll just put it back in. So there you go, that little bitty plug in that hole has an O-ring. Let me cram some information in here for you. Just so if it's your first time looking at it, you'll know. So obviously this is the entire new setup. It's a new shaft, new bearings, new tapered bearings. I kept the old, this is a This has needle bearings in it. This would be a race. This is actually the outside race, and it's full of needle bearings, and it rotates. This actually turns, and then these are fixed on the shaft. This rotates around. Obviously, this is oblong. And this shaft is all chewed up. This shaft is nice and clean. This is missing some chunks out of the teeth. How does that happen? I don't know. It's probably the original shaft. And this one's nice and perfect. I also noticed that there's only one hole when they milled this thing. This has two. I thought that was for the purposes of checking your lash in the pump, if that's the correct term, but I don't know. Oh, these spacers go right here in between the needle bearings and the tapered bearings to, I guess, to hold the needles in. These were worn out. The mechanic that pressed this together for me at Deere told me to get new ones, $75 for these two things. This one's actually cracked. It's cracked all the way through. Been in there a very long time. So those are junk. Thought I'd show you that. Now, done with that. The way this is set up is this is the back plate. This will be sitting inside the pump like this. But there are 3 spacers in this pump, really thin. And you have to adjust the play forward and back. From the front of the pump to the back of the pump. And this race goes in here. One moment. Pardon the noise. Unpack this. So you got this race. This race goes inside this pump. Like that, like that, like that, like that, and then the back goes up on top of it, bolts together. And if I forget to tell you, there are 2 very important ports. There's one here and one here. And on mine you can see a shadow where the O-ring's set, and they correspond to holes on this back plate here and here. You have to make sure those are aligned correctly when you put this all back together, or you're going to cause something catastrophic on this pump as far as pressure goes. And fortunately for me, I took a picture of where everything lines up, so I shouldn't have to think too hard about it. Alright, so here's what I'm going to do. Is I've got this pump sitting up on blocks, and the thing I'm confused about is that the book says to don't use oil on the O-rings or seals, but you can use Vaseline. So I don't want to tear up my new seals on the bottom of this pump, so I'm going to put some Vaseline on them just to make sure that the shaft has a chance of sliding through without any friction. So I'm just going to lube that sucker up. You know, you do all this work, then you make one little blunder, and you're starting over. More money, more time. John Deere told me the old mechanic said, you know, if I talked to the service department, he might rebuild the pump for me, but they haven't done them in years. $200 an hour, and he said it was a 4-hour job. Now, let me tell you something. That guy must be good, because I have way more than 4 hours in this thing. Waiting for parts, waiting for everything, getting stuff in that I need. I easily have a couple weeks in this thing, working on it a couple hours at a time, maybe 1 hour at a time, 2 hours at a time. Seems like I've been at this forever. I guess time-wise, I haven't spent a whole lot of time on it, but I've spent enough time that I'm not paying somebody $200 an hour if I can make this thing work. If it fails, maybe I should have paid somebody $200 an hour. I'll know when it's in the machine and running. So now I'm going to drop this in ever so gently better do this. I better do this way. Feel under here. Make sure. Yep, that slid through nice and easy. And this race goes on like this. That's pretty grimy. Let me clean that off. Some oil on it. The thing you have to do on this is, the thing is I put new race in the bottom, and I don't know that it's exactly where it has to be. I'm just guessing. I can't find any speck on it. I just drove it down far enough. I had measured the distance from here to the top of the race down in the hole, and it was like, for ease of measuring, I used centimeters, and it was 7.3 centimeters. Great. But the new one obviously doesn't have any wear on it. The bearings don't have any wear on them, and I wanted to make sure that I could get my hook-nosed needle pliers down in there, or a puller if I ever have to get it out again. And so that's where that's at. So the question is how many shims do I need? Will I need any shims? I hope I don't need any. Then I have 3 to put in later on down the road if it gets sloppy. I bet these things, you know, I bet they charge a fortune for them. They're paper thin. Anyway, I gotta knock this in. Give me a second. Something I just realized too, getting ready to put this race in, and I knew this, I just forgot about it. I used the taper side when I drove that seal in. I didn't really have to drive it, I just tapped it. And that's probably why I was having an issue. I was probably using one that was I was probably using the wrong side. Obviously this side is not tapered, that's just flat, and this side is tapered. So which one do you use for the seal? I'm guessing you use this one for the seal. Like I'm going to use this one to drive the bottom of this race in. When I took the race out on the other side, because the lip is so thin, I mean when I drove it in, it just fit like that down in there. Of course I had the handle on the other side, and that kept everything centered. I could have done it like that. I don't know. I don't know. But I'm going to do it this way because it's just safer. It looks safer. Here goes nothing. Come on now. Maybe I'll just use the hammer. It's plastic. How far do you take it? I don't know these things. Oh. There we go. See, I'm really confused. So this is going to be tight in there. There's not going to be any lash. Oh, let's see. The lash comes from the race. I guess it'll get looser with time because the other one knocked out really easy. There needs to be 1,000th to 5,000th movement in this back and forth. So man, I'm confused. I am so confused. I'm not doing anything wrong. This is how it came out. But I don't know. I don't know. Oh, I can't use this tool because there's a bolt on it. It does me no good. I'm pretty sure this has got to be flush all the way in. Which, if it doesn't go flush, then that tells me my race is not far enough in the bottom, and it is not. Look at that, it's tight. So I gotta knock this back out. I gotta drive that race back down in there further so I can get this flush. Can you see that? Yeah, see how that is not flush? That's got to be flush with this body, which tells me my race is significantly too high. That's a bummer. Okay, so here's where I am. I ordered 2 new, they're called, what are these called? Outlet valves that go in this body. And the reason why I ordered 2 new ones, got them off of, I think it was Reliable Parts, got them through Amazon, about $11 each, is because when I was putting this back together, I was dropping these in here, and I noticed, if I can get it out, this one, these all stick up, and they got a nice spring to them. But this one was laying down in there almost flush, and this odd one here is also sticking way down in there, and it has a different opening. So I thought maybe this was something special in that hole, but looking at the book and looking at a couple other videos that just give you little flashes, I mean just little blips of what this looks like. I can lean this up for you. Going in these holes. This one here doesn't belong in there. This one is in an image of another pump that looks just like this Radial pump, and they're all like this. I think it's a different model of pump, different design, different style. So I'm taking that one out, and this one here, it was sitting all cockeyed. Something was wrong with it. So I took it apart. Hopefully you can see this. Yeah, I just took it right apart. There, this little disc comes out, as I think I showed you before. You can flip that over. This spring is broken. This is actually missing. It's missing the end. Yeah. Go into focus. See that? Can you see it? Can you see it? Right there is the point. It's snapped off. It's supposed to be wrapped around so it's level and flat like this, and it's busted. There you can see it, kind of. Find my finger. Broken off. So where's that little piece of spring? Inside the pump, inside the system. That's great. It wasn't in the filter. Hopefully it got caught in the transmission filter and didn't make its way into the transmission pump, that tiny little piece of wire. But I'm wondering if that little piece of wire didn't make its way to the seal and tear that seal up. Anything's possible. And I noticed here, this disc is chewed up pretty good. It's got some really, really bad spots in it. I doubt you can see that on camera. Yeah, maybe. Little flashes of dents. The edge is chewed up. So that is junk. The body might still be good and the other end is still good, but I don't see any reason to keep it. So I'm going to drop these new ones in there. I'm going to stick a little oil on them. They feel a little dry. Give them a starting chance to do something good, whatever they're supposed to do. So that one's in. Oh man, they're snug. They're snug, but they got a gap right here that'll squeeze. So I'm going to push them down in there and make sure they still spring, because they're pretty tight. Oh yeah, they work fine. Makes me wonder if I shouldn't have replaced them all. They're even a little different than these. I assume these are originals. They got a little bit bigger they just look different. But I think they'll be okay. I hope. Gotta be better than what was in there. Okay, here we are. It's another day. I'm back at this pump again, and what I'm doing is getting ready to set the in play on this shaft. So it can only go up and down. You can't see it. It's sitting in the pump right now. Let me see if I can crank this down for you. I can't. This is the top of the pump, or the side of the pump. There's the shaft sticking out, obviously. I have my dial indicator set up. And just for your information, this is what I got. I've never used this before. I got this from the freight company. It's a magnetic stand, and it's actually, for the price of it, which is pretty cheap compared to what's on the market, it's pretty affordable. And then here's the dial indicator. I got the digital one, so I don't have to sit there and figure out a needle dial, because I am not a machinist. And the total price of those two units was about $48 or $49 with tax, which was considerably less than anything else I could get. And one last note, I'm going to crank this back up. So here's the base, magnetic base. There's the stand sticking up. I have the needle sitting here, and this thing slides. As it slides up and down, you'll see it move right there. As I move the shaft up and down, the spline, it changes the indicator, which is in inches, because I'm shooting for what the book says. It actually tells me to put the back plate on. I have not done that yet, because I want to check the end plate where it is right now. It shows you set up here with their John Deere jig. I don't have a jig, so I have it just stuck to the pump. And it says to set the shaft at an in play of 1/1000th to 5/1000th of an inch. That's the target. I've not put the back plate on yet and torqued it down, because there's a spacers. You have to decide how many spacers that go in there. I gave this some thought and how this would work, because I've never done this before and I don't know what I'm doing. The race in the bottom is it's fixed. It doesn't slide in and out. So you tap it in and it's basically stuck in there, and you can move it tapping it. However, I have to decide how many spacers to put in this, and I wanted to make sure all this worked before I took the time to put the back plate on, and I wanted to see where I was at on this shaft. So here's where I am, and I'll stop talking. So if you watch this indicator, I'm going to zero it out. I grab this shaft and I pull it up, maybe, and I'm at 40 thousandths of an inch, 400ths of an inch, 0.039, 0.04. So that's way too much play. So what I have to do is flip this pump over, tap that race in some, and change that setting, tighten it up a little bit. Here's what I've done. So I made sure that this was as perpendicular or in line with this shaft as I could get. It's not super easy, but they give you enough adjustments, tilts and things, that you can move things around and get it lined up with this hole. And I've got it zeroed out so that when I drop it in this hole, it goes back to minus whatever that is, but it's basically zeroed out. And when I figured out tapping this shaft in and out, moving the race in and out, is that 1 to 5 thousandths is basically tight. I mean, that is nothing. For you machinists out there, you're hitting yourself in the forehead saying, this guy's an idiot. Well, I don't know these things. I have to learn this. So I push on the bottom, and I've got it so it moves up to, well, that's 9, but it falls back down to 2 thousandths. I don't understand why now it's down to 1 thousandths, why it just doesn't fall to 0. So that means something in here is not perfect. This whole setup is not perfect. I'll zero it out again. I'll push on the bottom of the shaft again. Yeah, it's back up to 8 thousandths. I'm going to leave it at 8 thousandths. That's just a minute amount of play. And then I'm going to put all of these shims in that I took out. I'm going to put the back plate on, which is ready to go right here. It's all Vaselined up. And I've got, back this off for you. I got all the packings Vaselined in. There's one O-ring. And then the hole down here is a packing. I'll line that up, flip the pump over, line that up, set that in, drop the bolts in, torque it to 85 foot-pounds, I believe is the number. And then I'm going to I'll put the shims in, Vaseline this up. There's a big O-ring in here, by the way. I didn't show you. Very large O-ring that came in the kit. It goes around here. I'll drop these shims in here and put some Vaseline so they stay. And then I'll start tinkering with fine-tuning this adjustment. But basically, tight is where it needs to be. All right, so this is my fourth attempt at putting this back plate on and using my dial indicator, which I'll show you how that works here in a minute, to try and get the correct end play in this crankshaft, pump shaft. Here's what I've done. So I have 3 shims. All 3 were in the pump when I took it apart, but it was sloppy. You saw it. These 2 are really thin. The other one is slightly thicker than these 2 put together, but they're so thin they won't even register on my caliper individually. The thickest one barely pops the number up. So what I did was, in a nutshell, I started with no shims. I put it together, I torqued it down without the exhaust valves in. Huge in play. Huge as in way out of spec. So I took it back apart, I put all 3 shims back in, I put it back together, no in play. I took it back apart and I put just these 2 thin ones in. Better, but still too much in play. So now I'm putting the one thick one in, which is a little thicker than the 2 of these, and I'll put it back together and torque it down. It is a time-consuming pain, but I don't know what else to do. I don't know how the professionals do it, but this is how I'm doing it. So I will put this on correctly, and let's see here. Here's this hole, matches this hole. This hole matches this hole, and my destroker valve is with this pipe. Everything's the way it's supposed to be. So I get this back on with anything falling out, and line the hole up by sight, and that's close enough. Okay. I suddenly have no confidence in what I just did. Okay, everything looks good. I guess it'd be smart to put the bolts in so they drop in and line it up before I set it down. That's okay. A little wiggle. I don't care. Alright, I will tighten these down, torque them to 85 foot-pounds, and I don't have a jig, so I had to make something. I'm going to have to come up with something even better to torque all the rest of these down, because they got to be 100. And let me tell you something, 85 foot-pounds on something that can move, geez, that's a tough one. All right, I just want to show you something here real quick. I've got this torqued down to 85 foot-pounds per bolt on this back plate. I made this little jig. I guess they actually have a John Deere jig that holds the pump on a vise or whatever they do. I took this flat piece of steel that I use to practice cutting on, torching, and making jigs out of. So I drilled a couple holes in this plate corresponding to the holes on the body. Took the factory bolts, ran them through the bottom, found nuts that fit the top. And that way I could stand here, let this piece of steel dig into my hip, and it gave me the leverage that I needed to put these at 85 foot-pounds. Just for fun, I'll put it on here. what you can see, but you can listen. Listen closely. Steel's digging into my hip. I gotta hold this pump. Maybe. Is it rocking? Sitting. I'm not sitting level. One moment, please. There we go. Listen, listen. Did you hear that? Oh yeah. They're all 85 foot-pounds. All right, I have this set up to check the in play in this shaft. And this is my digital indicator I bought from that freight place. And I mean, it's almost half the price of what I found anything online. And it seems to work. The book shows, the John Deere picture shows a ball sitting on top of this, a bearing or something sitting on top of this shaft. There's a dimple on the end of that shaft. And then this pin here rides on top of that. But the way that's shaped, it fits pretty snugly down in there. It's not going to move. So I'm in inch-pounds, or I'm in inches, not pounds. So I'm going to zero that out. I tapped on this shaft, made sure it was bottomed out at the bottom of the race, down the back of the plate. The specs on this, they give me 2 specs, and because I'm not a machinist, I don't know what this means, but it says standard drive and through drive. If you know what that is, send me a message, comments below, educate me, but I don't know. I don't know these things. So I'm going to go by the standard drive, because when I move this, I've already practiced a couple times on this to make sure I was within range and that I was finished, and I believe I'm finished setting this after I think the 4th try. I'm in inches, and it says 0.006, I guess it's 6 thousandths, to 0.037. And I'm certainly within that range. I don't want to be tight, and I don't want it to be loose, because as things wear, it's going to get loose. So here we go. The book says stick a pair of vice grips on the shaft about 5-8 inches up from the body. I'm close enough. I'm the width of this wrench. And you're going to watch this indicator move, and we'll see where it goes. I got to wiggle this in here. I'm going to pry up, or pry down. I'm going to pull on it. Pull, 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 pull. And it is at 0.010, which is right in spec of 0.006 to 0.037. So I'm somewhere in the middle. That's the in play. And see, it moves after you mess it up. But I'm going to call it good. I'm going to call it good. There's a little bit of play in there. I can't physically move the shaft. But you know those bearings and those races are going to seat and melt together. So I can spin the shaft by hand, and I'm going to call it good. Alright, I'm going to drop these pistons back in. I already pulled off an O-ring and Teflon, what's left of it. New O-ring, Teflon seal goes on here. Maybe. Wow, I didn't expect that to be tight. Live action right here. Doesn't feel like you could tear it if it's pretty strong. See if I can thread it down. Alright, that's seated up against that O-ring now. One more thread, jump. Woohoo! Alright, set that right there. I'll oil up this piston a little bit. The spring. I cleaned this piston off. Put a little oil on it. Give it a chance to get started without any major friction. Spring goes in here. And this is number 8. And this is corresponding stamp number 8. And it went right down in there. Thank goodness. Crooked. Hand tighten them. I believe the torque's 100 pounds. And 7 to go. All right, I'm putting in the last piston, and I found one kind of disturbing thing in this process that I didn't realize before. And that is that the O-ring, I'm missing one O-ring. I thought I counted 8 and put it in this bag, but I only have 7. And I'm looking at all my other bags. I know I didn't stick it in here. I got the right number in the used bag. Anyway, I've searched all the junk bags. And so what I did was I went through the bag of O-rings. I went through the O-rings that I already took off, and there were a couple in there that were still pliable. I don't know. They just didn't take the beating. They aren't, maybe they're replaced. I don't know. But anyway, this one's okay. I'm just going to reuse it. So I'm on the last piston, number 3, and I'm going to use this used O-ring on it, on the top of the pump, so I can get to it. So I just want to show you this. So what I'm doing, this is self-explanatory. You guys, you wouldn't be working on this if you didn't know what you were doing to some degree. But anyway, I'm going to peel this off, and I wanted to just show you what I'm doing here if I didn't already show you. I don't have a parts washer, and if I did, I wouldn't run these parts through it because you know, parts washer is always dirty. That's my parts washer. It's one of these tubs, clean tubs with brake cleaner in it, and you'll be surprised how much grime comes off these things that was inside that pump. I'm sure there's more in there inside the pump, but at least I can be comfortable to know that I got it off here. Yeah, the stuff that floats in here coming off this piston. Jeez. So I hope this isn't all for nothing. But I can feel the pump making pressure already just from me putting the caps in it and sealing off all the air, or redirecting the air flow. So I'm going to dry this thing off here real quick. Be patient, please, as I just rolled that piston across my dirty table. Give one little bath real quick and dry it off with this dirty rag, because that's smart. Can't be worse than what's already in that pump. Set that here. Put my new used O-ring on it. Knock the paper towel in off. Yeah, see, that's still tight. That's a good O-ring. That's still good and tight. Time will tell. Drop this piston in here. A little oil. In you go. Get that piece of lint off. And it's down in there. And as you will see it, the spring is sticking out, if you can see that. I just rotate this pump. Oh man, that pump is getting it's getting pressure. Okay. Now it's down in there. It's at the bottom. Wipe this lip off. And Teflon seal. Line it up. And man, that is it. This pump is back together. Torque everything down. I have some O-rings left over. I have this O-ring, which looks like the O-ring that goes in here, but it's a little thinner and it's a little bit larger. So I'm going to poke around here. Maybe it goes under here, I suppose. You know what I'm thinking? I bet I put the O-ring for this on that one right there. I think I replaced that. I'll have to look at that again. I bet I used the wrong one. And then I also have all these little O-rings. Well, there's the two packings for the screen, but I've got all these O-rings here. So I'm going to pull this off, see if there's an O-ring under there. I'll double check that. No, I don't need to. I know I put an O-ring on that. I didn't put an O-ring on these pipes. I know I don't have one for this big pipe. You can see that. Yeah, I don't have an O-ring. There's nothing big enough to fit that. I'm gonna leave that alone. Probably have one for that. And that's it. There's nothing else. All right, next time I see you, I'll be putting it on the tractor. And thanks for watching. Take my glasses off here so I don't look like a nerd. I appreciate you watching this video. I've got plenty of projects around here. If I do, I'll include you in it. I hope this helps anybody that's rebuilding one. This, I believe, is a 2000 series. It's called it's a John Deere Radial piston pump is what it's called. Off my 1975 John Deere, 1974 John Deere 300B diesel backhoe loader. Till next time.